There is a room where the sound level is measured below zero. Not silent by comparison, but quieter than the threshold of human hearing. And the longer you stand in it, the louder you become to yourself. This is still unexplained. The science that hasn't finished arguing. So what does a negative decibel actually mean? Why do people in these rooms report hearing their own blood and sounds that are not there at all? And is the famous claim that nobody can stay inside for more than 45 minutes true, or one of the most repeated pieces of misinformation in science journalism? Start with the scale, because it is the part almost everyone misreads. The decibel scale does not start at zero the way a ruler starts at zero. 0 decibels is defined as roughly the quietest sound a healthy young human ear can detect. It is a human measurement, not a physical floor. Sound quieter than that still exists. It simply falls below what our ears evolved to notice, which is why a room can legitimately be measured at -9 or -20 decibels. Those numbers are not poetic exaggeration. They are ordinary readings on an instrument that is more sensitive than we are. It helps to know the scale is logarithmic. Every 10 decibels represents roughly a 10-fold change in sound energy, which is why the numbers stay small while the differences are enormous. A normal quiet bedroom sits around 30 decibels. A recording studio might reach 10. Getting below zero is a different order of engineering entirely. The rooms that achieve this are called anechoic chambers, meaning without echo. The walls, ceiling, and floor are covered in deep wedges of sound-absorbing material, angled so that any sound entering them bounces further inward and dies rather than reflecting back. The floor is usually a suspended mesh grid, so even your footsteps have nowhere to reflect from. The whole structure usually floats. The chamber sits on springs or isolation mounts inside a second building, so that traffic, plumbing, footsteps in the corridor, and the building's own structure cannot transmit vibration into the space. You are not just removing sound, you are removing the building. The engineering problem is that sound arrives through everything. Air, obviously, but also concrete, steel, water pipes, and the ground itself. A chamber that only handled airborne sound would be defeated by a lorry passing outside, so the isolation has to break every physical path into the room at once. 2 of them have held the record. Orfield Laboratories in Minneapolis measured around -9 decibels and was recognized as the quietest place on Earth for years. In 2015, a chamber at Microsoft's campus in Redmond was measured at roughly -20 decibels, which is a very large margin at that end of the scale. Both figures come with a caveat worth stating. Measuring a room that quiet is genuinely difficult, because the microphone and its own electronics contribute noise at the same scale as the thing being measured. Now the interesting part, which is what happens to a person inside. With no external sound at all, the auditory system does not switch off. It keeps working, keeps amplifying, and starts delivering signals that are always present, but normally buried beneath the noise of the world. People consistently report the same list. Their own heartbeat, clearly. Blood moving through vessels near the ear, the mechanical sound of joints and tendons when they move, their lungs. Some describe a high, thin tone, which for many people is tinnitus that was always there and never audible until the world went quiet. There is a useful detail in that list. Most of these sounds are always reaching your ears. Your heartbeat does not get louder in the chamber. The world simply stops covering it, and the brain's automatic gain control keeps turning up sensitivity until something arrives, the way a camera brightens a dark room until grain appears. This is also why the effect builds rather than arriving at once. Visitors often describe the first minute as merely quiet, and the 10th as intensely loud, which is the opposite of what the room is doing. Nothing has changed except the listener. Balance goes next. And this surprises people who assume hearing and balance are separate. They are not. The inner ear handles both, and the brain uses faint environmental sound to help place your body in a room. Remove the acoustic cues, and some people sway, misjudge distance, or feel the floor is not quite where they expected. Some subjects report hearing sounds that are not there. Faint music, voices, rhythms. This is not a haunting, and it is not unusual. It is the same mechanism behind the shapes people see in complete darkness. a prediction system deprived of input starts producing output anyway and reports its own noise as signal. Researchers studying sensory deprivation have found the same pattern across senses. Deprive vision, and people see forms. Deprive touch, and they feel movement. The brain is not a passive receiver waiting for input. It is a system constantly predicting what should be there and correcting itself against reality. Remove reality, and only the prediction is left. Which brings us to the famous claim. You will have read that nobody can stay in the quietest room on Earth for more than 45 minutes before hallucinating or being forced to leave. It has been repeated by newspapers, television, and countless articles for over a decade. It appears to have grown from a remark rather than a study. Reporting traces it to comments about how long visitors had chosen to remain, which is a very different measurement from how long a person is able to remain. One is a fact about tolerance for boredom and discomfort. The other would be a fact about human physiology. People have since stayed considerably longer, deliberately and without incident. Journalists and researchers have spent well over an hour inside, and some report the experience as calming rather than distressing once the initial strangeness passes. The room is uncomfortable, disorienting, and strange. It is not a timer. So what is genuinely still open? Quite a lot, and it is more interesting than the myth. We do not have good data on what prolonged acoustic deprivation does over hours or days, because almost nobody has done it under controlled conditions with proper measurement. The rooms are working laboratories with booked schedules, and a study that occupies one for days is expensive in a way that curiosity alone rarely justifies. We also do not fully understand why the effects vary so much between people. Some report distress within minutes. Others find it restful. Whether that tracks with tinnitus, anxiety, hearing sensitivity, or simple expectation is not settled, and the sample sizes involved are tiny. Expectation almost certainly plays a role, and it is hard to remove. Nearly everyone who enters one of these rooms has already read that it will be unbearable, that they will hallucinate, that there is a time limit. That is an unusually strong prime to carry into a sensory experiment, and it contaminates most of the anecdotes we have. And there is a deeper question underneath, which is what silence means to a brain that has never experienced it. Every human who has ever lived has done so inside a constant low murmur. Air, blood, weather, other people. The quiet room is the first environment in our evolutionary history where that murmur is absent. The rooms themselves were never built for any of this. They exist to measure products. How loud a phone speaker really is, how much noise a hard drive makes, where a car dashboard rattles. The strangest environment on the planet was constructed so that engineers could hear a fan bearing clearly. Hearing researchers use them too, along with manufacturers of hearing aids, aircraft components, and medical equipment, all of whom need a baseline with nothing else in it. That is often how this works. The most extreme conditions humans can produce are usually side effects of industry, not expeditions. We did not set out to build the quietest place on Earth to see what silence does to us. We built it to test loudspeakers, and then noticed that standing in it was strange. So the honest summary is this. The room is real. The negative numbers are real, and the experience of hearing your own body is real and reliably reported. The 45-minute limit is not a finding. It is a sentence that escaped, and it has been quieter in that room than it has been in the reporting about it. Some questions still don't have an ending. Subscribe for the next one. Up next, the place on Earth where GPS quietly lies.